Okay, so Shakur Stevenson versus Oscar Valdez for the WBC and WBO super featherweight title. A brilliant fight. Two former Olympians. Probably the biggest test in both of Shakur's and Oscar Valdez's career. And a pretty decent card in general, to be fair. Not just this fight. Usually boxing, the cards are pretty mediocre. But in this one, you got some goals. You got Keyshawn Davis fighting, who I think looked pretty good. You got obviously Muhammad Ali's grandson Nico Ali Walsh, who's in it. So some decent fights and a decent card. Obviously, this card does. I don't know what genius decided that this one should be on the same day as the Katie Taylor and Serrano fight, which I'm going to do a preview for as well. But yeah, a weird decision. But either way, a brilliant fight again. Shakur Stevenson, 24 years old. And you look at Oscar Valdez, 31 years old. So you got two guys who are... Shakur, I don't think, is in his prime yet. And Oscar, I think, is heading into his prime. So a brilliant fight, though. And both undefeated as well, which makes the fight even better. Just an amazing fight in general, to be honest. And I don't know. I think these sort of lighter weight fights, to me, always provide the most entertainment. So I am really excited for this fight. I think for definitely for Shakur, it'd be his biggest test so far. Obviously, his last fight against Jamal Herring, he put in an absolute clinic, an unbelievable performance, to be honest, and just made it look pretty easy. And then, and obviously captured an world title in that. And then for Oscar Valdez, not everybody's favourite fighter because of the certain drug thing going on, but Oscar Valdez, he's a problem for most people as well. Obviously, he trains out of Eddie Reynoso's gym. He's not the same skill-wise, but he is extremely aggressive, same way that Canelo Alvarez is. And I think in that gym in general, they seem to train fighters to be very, very aggressive. The get-go, he has a very high guard, similar to how Canelo fights. So I think for Shakur, like I said, Valdez is a very, very difficult opponent for anybody. So I do wonder in this one how Shakur handles the pressure that Valdez brings, especially with it being such a big fight as well. And again, at 31, he's not old like Herring was. He's young, and there is a bit of beef between them, not much, but enough to add some fire and fury to the fight. But a great fight, and I'm going to go through this fight here. So first of all, I want to look at Oscar Valdez and how he wins the fight. Valdez is a power puncher by nature. He tends to throw a lot of his shots at range because he has a lot of power, especially at the weight class, and he throws a lot of looping shots, which more often than not they work. But in this fight, I think the first thing I think he should do is be economical with his punches. Don't just swing wildly, because Shakur will make you miss, and make you miss very, very badly. He needs to be controlled in there. Valdez needs to be sharp. He needs to really, I think, just don't get aggressive against Shakur. Stay patient. Don't do anything crazy in there. And I think doing that is his best chance, because you're not going to knock a guy out like Shakur out with just swinging wild haymakers. You need to be smart. So, like I said, first thing, be smart with your punches. Don't be stupid with it. I think it's not the same, right? But there is a lot of people talk about Devin Haney being a little bit like Floyd 2.0. But to me, I think Shakur is the closest thing to what Floyd was like. I think with Devin Haney, he's a bit more, he gets hit a bit, where with Shakur, he's so slick. I know he's a southpaw, so it's different, but he's just very, very hard to hit Shakur, and I think that's Valdez's biggest problem. So this is why I think being smart with your punches and not swinging wildly will be the smart thing to do in this fight. So to me, that's the first thing you should do. And then the second thing, against a guy like Shakur, you can't allow him to dictate the fight. So to me, if you can just close off the ring, don't give him any space to land his shots, and really make it a hard fight for him. I don't mean necessarily make it a dirty fight, because then you kind of smother your own work, but just do enough. Just keep him on the back, get him against the ropes, pepper him with a jab. He's southpaw, so obviously they do kind of clash the front legs, and you may, quite often with southpaw and orthodox, they do tend to have moments when fighters lead legs kind of, not lead legs, where their heads clash, but nothing too much. And also with Shakur, he has a 2-inch reach advantage on Valdez, so this is again another reason why I would really try to close that distance and really close the ring off. And it's something that nobody ever did to Floyd, and I get it's not easy to do it to Mayweather, but I do think with when you have a guy or guys who are in that sort of ilk of what Shakur and Floyd Mayweather, I think you have to make it hard for them and really just push them back and don't give them any space to work. So I say closing the ring off is the big thing I think for Valdez, and then it's kind of works in conjunction with it. But the third thing that I think Valdez should do is to essentially just keep a very high pace in this fight. And you look at a lot of Shakur's opponents, they let him work, and I think he kind of bamboozles them in there. But I do think when you have a guy like Shakur Stevenson, who's got great footwork, great head movement, just all around a real slick boxer, you need to make it hard for him. You need to really push him in there and really make him work. And I think if you can do that, especially like a power puncher like Valdez, it would make sense. I think some people have questioned his cardio at times. I think he's pretty stiff for 12 rounds, but if he can keep a pace, especially for a certain part, like Tiafimo kind of done this against Lomachenko, and it's something that, again, if you can get a fighter working off the back foot, fighters get more tired going backwards than do going forwards. And I think if you can just get Shakur doing that, he may then become harder to hit if you can tire him out. Just keep that high pace. Maybe you can't maintain it for a whole 12. You may not even be able to maintain it for like 6 or 7. Or just enough to keep him working. Obviously, I don't think you should tire yourself out in the meantime. Valdez is very big. Well, not very big, but he's big enough, I think, for the weight. But not to the point where I feel like that will weigh him down in the fight. So I can just keep a high pace. And I think the problem that Valdez has is that he doesn't actually back up. So again, I think just keeping on him, keeping in front of him, and keeping that high pace, I think is going to be really key for him. And especially if you want to land those big power shots, because that's ultimately what he wants. He wants to knock out. I don't know if he can outbox Stevenson. I don't know if anybody can, to be honest. But specifically with Valdez, I don't think he can outbox him. So I think the best thing to do for him in here is to keep it close, keep it aggressive, keep the high pace, close off the ring, and it's the best chance you have for getting your shots off. A little bit like what, not to the same thing, but a little bit like what Errol Spence did to Ugas the other week. You know, he really kept, from the 6th round onwards, he kept this pace, which was just horrible, and Ugas just couldn't keep up with him. So I think if he does a similar thing, Valdez, he may catch Stevenson once, and that's something I think he has to. He can't ever let him off the hook. He has to really go in for it. But yeah, that's sort of how I think Valdez wins it. Again, the big power punches are what he's looking for, so that's why I would look. If I was him, that's what I'd look to do. And then we come to Shakur Stevenson, one of my favourite fighters today in boxing. I think, like I said, I think he's the closest thing to Floyd that there is in boxing at the moment. I think he's so amazing to watch, so slick, and I just think people call him boring at times, but sometimes you gotta just have an appreciation for the sweet sights and the fundamentals, and he's amazing to watch, Shakur Stevenson. So yeah, I think he really, like I said, one of my favourite fights in boxing today, and for him, this kind of counters the sort of first point. This is more of what not to do, but to me, I think keeping your back off the ropes, keeping it in the centre where you can use your footwork and your movement, and able to sort of box around Valdez rather than kind of staying out of the way, I think it's important. Just stay off the ropes, keep it in the centre. Don't naturally back up. Shakur is a lot more aggressive. Like I say, he's like Floyd. He's almost more of like a pretty boy version of the pretty boy version of what Floyd was early in his career. And I think him being southpaw as well, for a southpaw, he has an amazing jab. And to me, if you can just sort of keep that there, keep the aggression, but don't back up, because I think against a power puncher like Valdez, that's what he'll look for. He'll look for you to back up and sort of shell up, and then he can land his big shots. So I think it's more just keep off the ropes and keep it in the centre. And I just don't, you can't really afford to back up against somebody as dangerous as Valdez. So that's what I would say. He doesn't really back up a lot. He doesn't really go up against the ropes a lot, Shakur. So I don't think it's too much of an issue, but I think it's something you definitely can't do in this fight. And I think the second thing, and I kind of mentioned it a little bit there, use the jab. That jab is possibly one of the best in boxing. It's so crisp, so precise. It finds its target every time. He's so sharp with it. And I just think against Herring, it looked at its best. He was popping that out, looking untouchable. It was a brilliant performance from Shakur in that fight. And I think against Valdez, he's going to look for the big shots. So you could find yourself, I mean, if you're Valdez, maybe you'll try and hook over the jab and counter it. But I just think Shakur's just too slick. I don't know if you can catch him with that. So, but it'd be something that I think if you're Shakur, you have to keep that jab sharp and precise. You can't throw any lazy jabs out there, because with someone like Valdez, who has such a dangerous lead left hook, I think you have to be very, very cautious in there with that jab. So keep it sharp, and I think you do that, and especially with his footwork, I don't see, it's almost like his rangefinder. I don't really see how you counter his jab, because it's so good and so precise. So yeah, I think that will be an issue for Valdez, and Shakur just keep using it. I don't know who has the best jab in boxing, but I don't think Shakur's far behind. He honestly is so good and so crisp. So I think that jab's definitely going to be key in this fight, as it always is. And the other thing that I would say is the key for him, Valdez, like I said, throws a lot of looping shots. And I think for Shakur, keeping your shots, your punches short, and don't ever wind up, because he, a little bit early in the career, he used to sort of throw sometimes out of range. Now he's kind of learned to sort of master distance a bit better, and he does a good job of hitting you and then getting out of range. And I think for Shakur, if he throws out of range, Valdez is famous for some of those looping shots, and he could get put out by one of them. So that's why I would say, like I said, with the jab, you can keep it sharp, keep your shots short and precise. You know, jab into the head, jab to the body. Little things like that, I think, will add up. And then I assume both these guys, I mean, Shakur probably will want the stoppage, but honestly, you've got a much better chance of doing that if you can just frustrate Valdez rather than forcing it. Because I think if you force it, you're playing to Valdez's hands, and I don't think you want that. So, and because it's a risk. You know, Shakur's never really been in a war thus far. Just hasn't had to. He's kind of just much more skilled than everybody. But to me, I don't think you really want to be taking that risk now. So, yeah, keeping them shots short, keeping the punches short, and I think it should be all right. But yeah, that's sort of how I believe both of these guys win. Now, when it comes to my prediction for this fight, I like Valdez. I think he's dangerous. I think he's brutal, but I just think Shakur Stevenson will be too much for him in this one. I think he's one of the best talents in boxing today. I think he's so slick. He's so quick, brilliant jab, like I said. Rarely really gets hit that much. Yeah, I think Shakur takes it. I don't think we'll stop him that. I think we'll get a 12-round unanimous decision. I think he tends to stop people, mainly Shakur, with overwhelming them. And he's become a bit more of a puncher recently, but I think you want to be cautious with that and not try and almost fall into your own hype. And I think being smart, being precise with your punches, using that jab, and yeah, I think Shakur will get this one done. But it's a brilliant fight though. Two excellent fighters, like I said, 131, 124, two of the best in boxing, and I think it's an exciting fight. And yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I don't know why they put the Katie Taylor-Serrano fight on the same thing, but it is what it is. You know how these promotion and the networks are. But yeah, great fight. I think Shakur gets a win, and yeah, until next time.